We're entering, I think, the dark ages right now. I'm listening to Jim Records and a whole bunch of other people who are behind the scenes more than you and I are. And Records is calling for tens of thousands of people to lose their jobs.
Yeah.
And the reason is because global trade is slowing. And that everybody thought that, after COVID, China would pull us out. But China's in worse shape than we are.
They are. It's bad.
When Kim and I had nothing, didn't have jobs or anything, we still invested. But we just didn't say these words, I can't do it. I can't afford it. We just figured out how to do it. And to this day, I think about some of the properties in Portland, Oregon. I think of some of the properties we acquired and all that. Just talking to the seller, saying, look, I understand. Show us your numbers, da-da-da-da. And we had to figure out, could we rent the place for more than we were going to pay for it? But the seller just wanted to get out of there.
Yeah.
They were called, in the scientific world of real estate, it's called, I'm a don't-wanter. I just don't want this thing anymore. And that period is coming up because a lot of people don't want their assets pretty soon.
The world is scary. Like, we're going into this dark time, and to your point of what Jim Ricketts is saying, like, it could be really bad, but that's when the most amount of wealth is made.
Yes, amen.
And so you have to go from this victim mindset to
right.
like, oh my gosh, the whole world's going to kill me, to going like, oh, how can I navigate this properly?
Right.
And if you can shake the victim mentality and you can learn to see there's opportunity everywhere, but these trained surfers went out there with the right equipment, jet skis and stuff, and they're riding these monsters, and they're having the time of their life.
Right.
And so if you have the training and the skill and the preparation, then you can go take advantage of these times.
Absolutely.
Well, we have a big problem, and the big problem is that my dad always told me as I was a kid growing up that it takes a lifetime to build trust and one time to ruin it.
Right.
And what we're really witnessing isn't just the death of a fiat currency or the dollar. We're witnessing the death of the fiat money system, the international monetary system, which requires trust to work.
Right.
And so as we're losing trust, each nation is now starting to go, we can't trust the U.S. dollar system. Look what happened to Russia. Their bank account seized. So now we need to use our own currency. So now we're seeing the rise of the BRICS.
Right.
And each of these BRICS nations wants to start using their own currency now. But of course, that's not going to work because they don't trust each other. They certainly don't trust China. They don't really trust the United States either. However, August 22nd, they're going to announce this new currency, a BRICS currency. But I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to somehow restore some trust back to this fiat money system. But I don't know if they can. And I think that is the real question that we're kind of facing today. And what they're really wanting to do is find a way to reintroduce trust. And so they're thinking about bringing gold back and using some sort of a gold peg to this new BRICS currency that would give it value, which would be pretty interesting.
Right. Just for people to understand here, it was back in 1944 after the end of World War II, because most times like this leads to war. And I'm afraid we're looking at war with, China, Taiwan, Ukraine, Russia.
Yeah. It's
not a good time. But anyway, when that happens is then 1944, a whole new currency came out. It was called the U.S. dollar, backed by gold. It was called the Bretton Woods Agreement. And slowly but surely, they kept changing the rules. And so in 1971, Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard. He broke the Bretton Woods Agreement. Now, it set up this huge boom. Because I remember in 72, I was flying in Vietnam for the Marine Corps, and I went to buy gold because I didn't know what gold was. And I had to smuggle gold into America because in 1972, when I bought my first gold, the Krugerrand from South Africa, it was illegal for Americans to own gold. Imagine that, illegal. And then what happened is in 74, Nixon sent Kissinger to Saudi Arabia and said, we're going to back the dollar with oil. So the dollar became the petrodollar. And they call Russia the gas station of the oil of the world. And oil keeps going up in price. And we now have a national debt that's going through the roof, and they keep printing more money. And, for everybody listening to the show for all these years, I'm always saying, don't save dollars, save gold and silver and Bitcoin.
Right. Yeah, and we're coming to the head, and, we don't know how many more magic tricks they have, but we can see it's certainly starting to close in where we're in a situation now where the Federal Reserve is raising rates at the fastest rate in history to try to bring down inflation. But the problem is they're making the government broke. And so now the U.S. Treasury is bankrupt, and so their deficit spending is going through the roof. The problem is as they spend more into the deficit, it's causing inflation to go up even more. So we're sort of in this damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. And so the only way to really remedy this is to impose capital controls to try to tamp down the inflation. But when you put the capital controls in place, then nobody else wants to hold the currency or invest into the markets. And it's just death spiral that we're in. So we're witnessing the end of this. And so
are we entering the dark ages?
We are for a number of
See,
reasons.
I say that with tongue in cheek because when I study history, I said, "Oh my God, the Dark Ages are coming. It's the end of an empire.
The
American Empire is coming to an end."
Yeah. So if you look at what sent us into the Dark Ages was after the Roman Empire fell, they went in and destroyed all the libraries, all the information. And it was almost like human civilization had to start over, like they didn't know anything. And what are we doing today? We're destroying all our history.
Right.
We're changing math. We're changing facts. And
1619 project.
Right. And it's almost like we're losing what we know to be true. And now we're going to be lost in this dark ages. Information will be censored, and then the money will be lost as well. And so it could be scary, but I think there's hope. There's hope out there. It's certainly the end of an empire when that happens, and so the only way to control the people from upturning that whole system is then to continue to clamp down even harder. So continue to gaslight the public, continue to censor the public, continue to try to control that narrative any way they can.
What does gaslighting mean? I've looked it up and I couldn't figure it out.
So it came from a play. I forget how long ago, but basically there was a wife who kept seeing like the street lights, the gas lights coming on, and the husband was like, "No, they're not coming on. You're imagining that." And she's like, "No, I can see them." "No, you're not. It's not really, your mind's playing tricks on you." So it's like a form of like mental psychological warfare. When you're telling people what they see is not true, even though they know it to be true, and it makes them go crazy because they're being told it's not. So capital controls is where they control the capital. They don't want money. They don't want money leaving the country. And so what happens is when you're in a country that has super high inflation, you're in Venezuela, you're in Argentina, you're in Turkey. So in Turkey, the currency is inflating so fast, 80%, 90% inflation, that people will take the Turkish lira and exchange it for anything. And they most likely want to get it out of the country, but they don't want the currency to leave the country because it just continues to crush the economy even faster. And so they'll limit money leaving the country. A couple examples are, so I was just recently, a week ago in Spain at this entrepreneur conference, and there was some entrepreneurs there from the Netherlands. And Netherlands are doing these capital controls now. So they're trying to buy product from other countries in the EU, right? It's sort of like the United States over there, the size. But they're not even able to buy the things they need because the government doesn't want the money to leave. Or the group that put this event on were from Argentina. And so in Argentina, they've had 100% inflation. And so the government says the exchange rate, the quoted exchange rate is roughly 250 Argentine pesos to $1, but you can only exchange, I think, $300 for that. So the black market, the exchange rate is 550. So people will go on the black market because they don't want the currency, right? So then what the government does in more capital controls is they say on your credit card, you can only spend $300 a month. If you go, so these guys are traveling, they're in Spain. Well, what do? They have to use their credit card. If they spend more than $300 leaving the country, they exchange it at double the black market rate.